The story begins with showing So-yeon arrives late on her first day of class. As a freshman at her university, her tardiness annoys the professor, leading to the entire class being punished. Despite this, one student can't seem to take his eyes off her. His name is Sung-min, and he spends the whole lecture stealing glances at So-yeon. Later that day, Sung-min finds himself on the same bus as So-yeon. He feels a rush of excitement, thinking this might be his chance to experience love. But his nervousness gets the best of him when So-yeon catches him staring. Embarrassed, Sung-min freezes, unable to say a word. To his surprise, they even share the same route home. Sung-min, who has never seen anyone as beautiful as So-yeon in his neighborhood, finds himself intrigued. Just as the atmosphere grows more awkward, Sung-min's friend Nabduk appears and greets him. Nabduk, the outgoing and confident opposite of Sung-min, starts teasing him. Unlike Sung-min, who is shy, innocent, and somewhat quirky, Nabduk proudly claims that the high school girl nearby is his 101st girlfriend. Nabduk's teasing only serves to highlight Sung-min's inexperience, urging him to simply boost his confidence and maintain good hygiene. However, his advice feels impossible for Sung-min to follow. It was revealed that Sung-min's upbringing plays a role in his reserved nature. His mom raised him to be responsible and cautious, often reminding him that a man's life carries great weight. She encouraged him never to take unnecessary risks. Despite this solid foundation, Sung-min's principles begin to waver. One day, while photographing a scenic view, his camera accidentally captured a portrait of So-yeon who looked very beautiful. They finally introduce themselves, but Sung-min tries to maintain a mysterious, aloof demeanor, quite unlike his true self. His facade crumbles when So-yeon impulsively decides to enter an abandoned house. Alarmed, Sung-min warns her that trespassing is illegal. Yet, the house is eerily quiet. Unsure of the real reason behind her actions, Sung-min fabricates a story about the house being the site of a past murder to convince her to leave. Instead of being frightened, So-yeon surprises him with her response. She says that if the place carries a dark history, she would rather transform it into a symbol of beauty and happiness, a place filled with joyful memories. The next day, the professor assigned the students a task to take pictures of buildings in their local area. For Sung-min, this was the perfect opportunity to get closer to So-yeon. Like any young man, Sung-min made sure to freshen up, taking a shower and fixing his hair before heading out. They began exploring the nearby buildings together. During their walk, they shared stories about their lives. Sung-min, who had lived in the city since childhood, confessed that he found Seoul uninteresting. However, So-yeon saw the city as extraordinary, so different from her hometown, Jeju Island. After her mother passed away and her father fell ill, So-yeon had been determined to graduate quickly to support her family. Hearing this, Sung-min apologized if his earlier comments had upset her. The bond between Sung-min and So-yeon grew stronger. They even started cleaning the abandoned house from before. Not only that, So-yeon also planted flowers to make the place look more beautiful. Amid their activities, Sung-min cautiously asked if So-yeon had a boyfriend. With a sharp tone, So-yeon responded by asking if Sung-min wanted to see for himself. Embarrassed, Sung-min apologized and rephrased his question, asking instead if she liked someone. So-yeon then revealed that their senior, Jae-wook, was every woman's dream. He was handsome, tall, charming, smart, a genius, wealthy, and an architecture student. In response, Sung-min jokingly mentioned that he too was an engineering student. But So-yeon bluntly pointed out that unlike Jae-wook, Sung-min was poor and not particularly attractive. Her candid remark left Sung-min both amused and a little disheartened. That night, Sung-min shared his thoughts with Nabduk. He confessed that his life lately felt strange and occasionally overwhelming. Nabduk was thrilled to learn that his friend had fallen in love. Nabduk then asked Sung-min to describe the girl he liked. As a result, Sung-min shyly admitted that she was sweet and funny, but he didn't know how to win her heart. Hearing this, Nabduk began teaching him step by step how to approach a girl. Love wasn't as hard as Sung-min thought. It only required confidence. However, since Sung-min was slightly drunk that night, the only advice he remembered was be confident. The next day, Sung-min mustered the courage to ask So-yeon on a date, coinciding with the start of summer break. With determination, Sungmin took So-yeon for a walk along the train tracks, which So-yeon seemed genuinely happy. At one moment, she mentioned that it was her birthday, November 11th, and offered to treat Sungmin to a meal to celebrate. While eating, Sungmin asked about her dreams, where So-yeon enthusiastically shared her aspiration to become a successful broadcaster and marry a wealthy man. Her response stunned Sungmin, yet he boldly declared that if he became a successful architect one day, he would build her a house. So-yeon even sketched her dream home, which delighted Sungmin. After spending the day together, they decided to head home. At the bus stop, So-yeon suddenly fell asleep on Sungmin's shoulder. For a moment, Sungmin was mesmerized by her beauty. He had never been this close to a girl before. Slowly but surely, So-yeon's head leaned closer to his, and they shared a kiss. Overwhelmed with joy, Sungmin proudly boasted about the kiss to Nabduk. He admitted it was his first kiss, but Nabduk teasingly asked if So-yeon's tongue was involved. In response, Sungmin shared with Nabduk that he kissed So-yeon while she was asleep. Confused, Sungmin asked whether a kiss required the use of the tongue or if it only counted if the person was awake. Annoyed, Nabduk explained that a simple lip-to-lip kiss was just a friendly kiss. As the new semester began, So-yeon had the chance to become a campus broadcaster. That day, Sungmin eagerly listened to her broadcast. When he tried to ask her to walk home together, he discovered that So-yeon was already with Jae-wook, and they planned to leave together. Unwilling to let Jae-wook steal the girl he admired, Sungmin decided to join them. During the walk, Sungmin couldn't hide his irritation as he watched So-yeon and Jae-wook chatting and laughing together. His frustration only grew when Jae-wook asked if there was anything between them, and So-yeon replied that Sungmin was her closest friend. As a result, Sungmin quickly added that he couldn't possibly have feelings for her. After all, if they were to date, he wouldn't be able to afford to take care of her. Hearing this, Jae-wook laughed and mocked Sungmin for his shabby clothes, saying he looked like a beggar. Deeply offended, Sungmin demanded to be dropped off immediately. At home, Sungmin vented his frustration to his mother. Angry, he questioned why all the clothes she bought for him looked so awful. His mother defended herself, insisting that the clothes were perfectly fine. Still upset, Sungmin stormed out, claiming that his mother never understood him. Sungmin then went to meet Nabduk and shared his grievances, where he lamented that So-yeon never saw him as someone she could love and suspected that she had already fallen for Jae-wook. While Sungmin admitted he couldn't compare to Jae-wook in terms of looks or wealth, Nabduk dismissed his negativity. He reminded Sungmin that the bold ones win the hearts of the beautiful. If Sungmin didn't confess his feelings, he would have to accept losing her forever. In the end, Nabduk encouraged him to wait for the first snowfall of the year. He told Sungmin that confessing his love on the first snowy day would be incredibly romantic. The next morning, So-yeon asked Sungmin for help with moving. She had decided to relocate to a place closer to campus, as her previous home was too far away. Although small, the new place felt like a fresh start for So-yeon. While unpacking, So-yeon showed Sungmin photos from her childhood and expressed how much she missed home. However, she admitted that going back wasn't an option. She needed to succeed and change her family's life. Her words deeply moved Sungmin, who realized that the girl he admired wasn't just beautiful, but also incredibly strong and inspiring. Before leaving, Sungmin didn't forget to mention that when the first snow fell, he wanted to meet So-yeon at their usual spot, the abandoned house. He had something important he wanted to tell her. The next morning, Sungmin was absent from class. So-yeon, feeling worried, tried to stay calm and hoped that Sungmin was okay. Later that day, as she was about to head home, Jae-wook stopped her and invited her to go out. So-yeon explained that she couldn't stay long since Sungmin had been missing all day. Jae-wook reassured her, saying they could look for him together later. Unbeknownst to So-yeon, Sungmin had skipped class to finish building a miniature version of her dream house. Using the sketch she had drawn, he managed to complete it in just one day. However, Jae-wook had taken So-yeon to a bar that evening. So-yeon repeatedly tried calling Sungmin, but his phone had run out of battery. Jae-wook, noticing her distraction, urged her to enjoy the night instead. Meanwhile, Sungmin waited anxiously for So-yeon to return. When she finally did, his happiness turned to heartbreak. So-yeon arrived home drunk, leaning on Jae-wook for support. Jae-wook held her close as she stumbled, almost kissing her before helping her into her room. The door locked behind them, and no sound came from the room except for muffled breathing. Sung-min stood frozen, his heart shattered. Unable to process what he had just witnessed, he left, overwhelmed with mixed emotions, disappointment and sadness consuming him. For the first time, dark thoughts clouded his mind. Sung-min wished So-yeon would disappear from his life forever. Walking home alone, he vowed never to fall in love again. Days passed, and during that time, Sung-min cut all contact with So-yeon. Confused and hurt, So-yeon eventually confronted him, asking why he had suddenly distanced himself and disappeared from her life. However, Sung-min only gave her a cold and blunt response. He told her that he no longer wanted to see her. Her presence, her smile, and her laughter, all of it made him angry and resentful. He admitted that being around her only brought him pain and sorrow. Sung-min pleaded for them to live their own separate lives, walking their paths without crossing each other's again. In the end, he asked So-yeon to stay out of his life entirely. That same day, the first snow began to fall. Remembering their promise, So-yeon went to the abandoned house, hoping to meet Sung-min. She waited for hours in the cold, but he never came. With a heavy heart, So-yeon finally gave up. Before leaving, she placed an MP3 player and her favorite cassette tape on the steps, hoping that Sung-min would find them and know that she had kept her promise. The scene then showing 10 years later. Since their parting, Sung-min had worked tirelessly to transform his life. His mind was consumed with his goal to achieve success. Everything Sung-min did was for the sake of improving his family's circumstances. Over time, his hard work paid off, and Sung-min became a wealthy architect. The dream he once held dear had finally been realized, though not without sacrifice. However, ever since that day, Sung-min developed a dependency in smoking that he could never shake. It became an ingrained habit, so much so that his assistant and fiancée, Eun-chae, often reprimanded him. She warned that if he continued, it could drive away potential clients who might find it unpleasant to visit their office. But Sung-min dismissed her concerns, insisting that smoking didn't affect his work. He confidently claimed that if clients were bothered, they could find another architect. Losing a few clients wouldn't leave him struggling for money. One day, an employee interrupted with news that a client from Jeju specifically requested Sung-min to design her house, and the client was So-yeon. At first, Sung-min barely recognized her name. Time had blurred many memories, including those of people he once knew. But as the name sank in, Sung-min recalled So-yeon as one of his old friends. When they met, So-yeon wasted no time with small talk. She explained that she wanted to build a house on Jeju Island and insisted that Sung-min be the one to design it. Initially, Sung-min hesitated. He was already occupied with another project that needed urgent completion. However, his colleague, Koo-young, offered to handle the ongoing project, allowing Sung-min to take on So-yeon's proposal. They later met at a cafe to discuss the details. During their conversation, Sung-min tried to piece together their shared past and asked So-yeon about her life now. So-yeon revealed that she had achieved success, though not as a broadcaster like she had once dreamed. Instead, she had married a wealthy businessman. With her husband's support, she now had the means to build the home she envisioned. No matter the cost, So-yeon assured Sung-min she would pay whatever he charged. As the conversation unfolded, memories from the past came flooding back to Sung-min. The pain and heartbreak he had buried resurfaced, especially now that So-yeon was married. Torn by conflicting emotions, Sung-min declined the project. So-yeon, frustrated and disappointed, expressed her regret for wasting time on what felt like a futile effort. She left, but her departure stirred something in Sung-min. A small voice in his heart urged him to reconsider. Eventually, So-yeon explained the significance of the house she wanted to rebuild. It was her family's old home. She dreamed of restoring it so that once her father recovered, he could spend his remaining years there in peace. When Sung-min inspected the structure of the house, he remarked that it was still sturdy. He explained that renovating it would be better than rebuilding it entirely. So-yeon, trusting his expertise, told him that whatever he suggested would surely yield great results. In the end, Sungmin showed her a few of his designs. Not long after, their second meeting brought back memories for So-yeon as well. She even went out of her way to buy Sungmin an expensive tie as a gift. However, she realized she needed to maintain some distance, especially after Sungmin introduced her to Eunchae. During their meeting, Eunchae shared that after completing this project, she and Sungmin planned to get married and move to America. Deeply in love with Sungmin, Eunchae expressed her desire to ensure he never felt abandoned or discarded as he had in the past. Sungmin had once bitterly mentioned that the woman who had left him deserved to die. Hearing this, So-yeon fell silent, burdened with guilt, realizing that Eunchae might have been referring to her. As the project began, So-yeon hesitantly asked Sungmin if the woman he mentioned was her. Sungmin stayed silent, avoiding the question. Even when So-yeon asked again as he prepared to leave for Seoul, his emotions boiled over. Sungmin vented his frustrations, accusing So-yeon of only understanding happiness and failing to grasp the struggles he had endured. So-yeon, growing emotional herself, argued that Sungmin had never given her a chance to explain. After their argument subsided, Sungmin apologized to Eunchae for postponing their flight, citing an issue with the project. One evening, a half-conscious So-yeon confided in Sungmin, revealing that her life had never truly been happy. Despite her wealth and luxurious lifestyle, she admitted to feeling empty inside. So-yeon then shared a painful truth where she had divorced her husband a year ago. She revealed that she had never loved him and had married solely for his money. Tearfully, she called herself a worthless woman, undeserving of anything better, echoing Sungmin's harsh words from the past. Overwhelmed, So-yeon broke down, screaming in frustration. Sungmin gently embraced her, whispering for her to stay calm. He assured her that he would remain until the project was completed. One night, the hospital called with news that So-yeon's father's condition had worsened. So-yeon rushed to his side, reassuring him that their house was being rebuilt and promising that once he recovered, it would look even better than before. The next morning, So-yeon returned to the renovation site. During a break, she invited Sungmin for a walk around her village. Playfully, she asked if he remembered the significance of the day. Smiling, Sungmin guessed correctly as it was November 11th, her birthday. As a gesture of gratitude, So-yeon promised to treat Sungmin to a meal in celebration. During their conversation, So-yeon asked if they could adjust the house design to include a piano. While it was a challenging request, given the stage of construction, she emphasized it was for her father. So-yeon explained how much her father loved hearing her play the piano. She then revealed a heartbreaking truth that her father didn't have much time left. It was revealed that So-yeon simply wanted to create one last cherished memory for her father. However, her request was met with strong opposition from Eunchae. She argued that demolishing and redesigning the space would take too long, reminding Sungmin of their wedding next month. Despite this, Sungmin was determined to fulfill So-yeon's request. He promised it wouldn't delay the project significantly. When Koo-young offered to take over, Sungmin firmly declined. He insisted on completing the project with his own hands. Sometime later, the house was finally finished, even ahead of schedule. So-yeon began moving in and expressed her heartfelt gratitude to Sungmin for his dedication. She admired how the house had turned out, beautiful, spacious, and far beyond her expectations. So-yeon was certain her father would be overjoyed when he returned. However, as Sungmin prepared to say goodbye, he stumbled upon something unexpected: the miniature house he had crafted for So-yeon years ago. The sight brought back memories Sungmin had tried to bury. Overwhelmed by emotions, he lashed out, venting his long-suppressed anger. So-yeon defended herself, explaining that she had kept it because it meant so much to her. She admitted her mistakes from the past, but insisted there was more Sungmin needed to understand. She recounted the incident with Jae-wook, explaining how she had fought him off, even slapping him when he tried to violate her. In that moment, she had desperately hoped Sungmin would come and save her. Instead, she received his cold farewell. From that day, So-yeon had hated Sungmin, but no matter how strong her resentment was, it could never outweigh the love she still felt for him. She revealed that Sungmin had always been her first love. Hearing this, Sungmin was left speechless, realizing that everything he had believed about their past was wrong. Despite their unresolved feelings, Sungmin and So-yeon decided to part ways and move on with their lives. Sungmin returned to Eunchae, while So-yeon focused on caring for her father. Even so, So-yeon's emotions betrayed her when her father accidentally came across a photo of Sungmin on her phone. When he asked about the man, So-yeon simply replied that he was just a friend. Meanwhile, though Sungmin was physically with Eunchae, his thoughts and heart remained with So-yeon, his first and greatest love. Struggling with his inner turmoil, Sungmin visited his mother and asked her to move to America with him. But his mother declined, handing him some money and explaining her attachment to their home. She had spent her whole life there, from her wedding day to hearing her child's first cry. She wanted to spend her last days in the same place where she had created so many precious memories. In the end, his mother told Sungmin that she was grateful and content with everything life and God had given her, finding joy in the simplicity of her existence. Unexpectedly, Sungmin's mother still wore the clothes he had discarded. Seeing this, Sungmin stayed silent as she spoke, her voice filled with wisdom. She told him that God always knows what is best for his creations. Sometimes, joy is a lesson in disguise, and other times, pain transforms into unexpected happiness. His mother then congratulated Sungmin on his upcoming wedding and reassured him that no matter how far he went, she would always be waiting for him to return home. Time passed, and Sungmin married Eunchae. The couple moved to America to begin their new life. Meanwhile, So-yeon settled into her renovated home with her father and started teaching piano lessons there. One day, a package arrived for So-yeon. Inside, she found an old MP3 player and her favorite cassette tape. Attached was a letter. It said that the person who had kept these items deeply loved her, Sungmin. In the letter, Sungmin thanked So-yeon for the memories they had shared together, their smiles, laughter, and the love they both felt for the first time in their lives. In the following lines, he expressed his regret. He apologized for never truly understanding So-yeon. He apologized for not showing up that night when she needed him most. He apologized for letting his pride overshadow his love. Finally, Sungmin asked for forgiveness for not being able to convey his feelings to her heart. He concluded the letter by accepting the choices they had made and encouraging them both to move forward in the lives they had chosen. Moral lesson from the story: if life gives you heartbreak, just turn it into a house renovation project, because drywall never judges your feelings. And remember, confidence is key, but maybe don't take life advice from a guy with 101 girlfriends unless you're ready for chaos.